So for this week's discussion post, I'm talking about the similarities and the differences between Gestalt and existential theories. Corey posits that these are both relationship-oriented theories. They both kind of work on encouraging self-awareness, concentrating on the individual as a whole. People are thought to be influenced by their current environment, and with Gestalt therapy, it's centered on helping clients become more aware and in control of their lives. And it really emphasizes the present. Existential therapy focuses on the investigation into life, whereas Gestalt therapy kind of concentrates on the present moment and its issues. So I think both theories, albeit in different ways, are kind of attempting to spotlight developing self-awareness. Strengths and limitations of each theory. The strength of Gestalt is that when people do come to therapy, they're focusing on current problems and they want solutions and ideas on how to solve those current problems. And I think that's where the client kind of has realization that the therapist isn't there to give them answers. So Corey talks about that this technique in Gestalt is to allow the clients to find their own understanding and their own answers rather than waiting for the therapist to provide that for them. Clients need to know who they are and not who they think they should be. So from several points of view, existential therapy is seen as an effective method. This theory can be an effective way to help those searching for meaning and balance in their life. And that's in part because this approach addresses real problems that we all inevitably can have. One problem with this theory is that it doesn't take into account all aspects of human life, and too much focus may be placed on the kind of ideological reasoning behind life. With compatibility of biblical concepts, I was able to kind of look to a verse that I think kind of encapsulated some of Gestalt, which is Matthew 6:34. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Every day has enough of its worries. And I think this kind of falls in line with Gestalt's stance on focusing on the present. Tan discusses how subjective experience is the basis of human life, of growth, and of self-realization. And I think existential therapy kind of corresponds to a certain extent with these Christian concepts. But it also has some shortcomings there. So in pondering these big existential questions, it's good to ask these questions, but it's important to remember that God exists and that theory encourages asking questions, but we assume that people's main focus is God, people with a Christian worldview, and that their world revolves around him and his teachings. And this theory, I wouldn't say, has a very optimistic view of death. And it's also important to note that death is something that confounds many people. And in the end, may be very scary if you don't instill, hope and faith with people. So in regard to limitations and creating any measurable outcomes for clients, there's restrictions with Gestalt therapy. They make note in Corey of an Indian man who's apprehensive about the thought of bringing his father into the room to tell him about how he feels about their relationship. So, different societies and different cultures have their own traditions and their own way of addressing things. And so, discussing your frustration or discontent towards a parent, a lot of people may feel incapable of doing this from certain backgrounds. Existential treatment is focused on the truth. It talks about free will and self-awareness, but Tan mentions how these different types of therapies within existential, the cognitive existential and the experiential existential therapy, did not show any significant effects when studied. There's some support for its effectiveness in a group setting, but the small number of individual existential therapy didn't garner empirical support regarding its effectiveness overall.